They're striking it.
But then again, even if they find them making mistakes at work, they're part of the union, they're still protected, so they can still be protected against the employer trying to find ways to fire them, because then they can go to their union and be like, hey, I know this is what they're doing, and they're trying to get me fired, they're protected against that.
Right, isn't there a strike law though for unions, or is that not universal?
What do you mean?
Like a three strike?
Depends on the union.
Yeah, every union is different.
Which would be a huge explanation of why perhaps we were talking about why were these guys at GE not was it
Right.
No, I'm talking about not last class, but last week when we were talking about sexual discrimination and sexual harassment and the guys weren't getting fired. That could be, I mean, there's so many different factors, but that could be a factor of why they weren't
I
fired.
just thought there was kind of, I didn't know. I just
No.
thought there might be a universal, like,
In this chapter, though, it talks about how corporations can kind of see what you're doing, they can commit the phone calls and stuff. And the thing is, if you have all that information on employees, you could catch someone somewhere slipping and you could get them on.
So this summer when I was out at INL, there's a desktop, so anytime you log into a computer out there, everything is monitored. And they have their own specific desktop, and I think it was Pinterest that they were going into, and their security was bringing that back as pornography if you were logging into Pinterest.
Nice.
Really? Yeah, wow.
Well, that's kind of one of the things I don't like is, let's say you go on strike because you're being mistreated, right? That's something where a strike kind of makes sense. Then they go and they look through your browsing history and they're like, oh, you went on YouTube and you watched a video for 18-year-olds that's against policy being fired. You should be protected from that. It doesn't mean you actually will.
Yeah,
be
but if you're
protected.
doing it with their property, I feel like they have the right to limit what you're supposed to be doing on their property, on their time.
To an
Exactly,
extent.
because you belong to them while you work.
You're not owned to
You're
them.
not owned.
I
but-
provide them a service,
Right,
and in exchange, they provide me a salary.
yes.
But by no means do I give up my rights to them. I'm not,
No, I'm not, you're right,
I'm not slave to my boss.
right,
I'm an
Right.
employee, but not slave.
right. But you should.
That's
be
not
doing
making you a
anything
slave though.
Give
That
up your
doesn't
rights.
pertain to work.
Well, but the question is if you're using their property to do it during, like you said, I'm being compensated. See, this is a tricky question because, for example, as a faculty member, I am contracted to teach from this period to this period, right? And my old boss would say, I expect you to be here from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But because I'm on salary, the argument was made, you're paying me for whatever time I spend doing the job you hired me to do. And if you want to play this game of, I want you here at 8 o'clock in the morning and you don't leave until 5, then I will turn my brain off when I'm in the shower thinking about how to design the class. I will stop redesigning my class over spring break or over summer break when I'm not on contract. That's not how teaching works. I will not answer student emails over the weekend. I will not grade after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't care if my midterm exams are due and I have to turn the grades in on time. I will work until 5 o'clock. So I can see his argument that creativity requires me to be able to access outside sources and things like that. It requires me to connect on Facebook. It requires me to engage in creative activity, and that's very hard to quantify. But I can also see Haley's argument that they're paying for the electricity, they paid for the computer, they paid for the chair you're sitting in, they're paying you to sit in it. They have a right to see a return on the investment. But then I get back to Sam's argument of, but the definition is, if I am completely and totally solely working for the benefit of the business, am I being
You
as
can
a...
justify whatever you're looking at if you're doing it for the business.
Yeah, but should I have to be worried?
I've
about
had to
doing
do that before.
It should be on equal terms. If I'm an employee, I'm on equal terms with the boss. I should not have to worry, am I going to be blackmailed because I use the computer? Am am I gonna be put in a position of weakness because of having you X, Y, Z?
Yeah, well, when I
But
had to
having
do
to make a
personal
phone
business
call.
at work, I brought my own laptop.
That's what I would do.
Which is
I
great.
did hope-
Well, because here's the thing, I sat on a committee when they talked about this, and the CIO of ISU, Chief Information Officer, the Chief Technology Officer said, we expect that employees are going to engage in personal business while they're at work. They are going to make phone calls that are not work-related. They will look at websites that are not work-related and things like that, as long as they are completing their specifically assigned duties in a way that is satisfactory to their constituents. We feel that that is a way of, it's a perk. I'll let you do these things that you need to do to keep your mind fresh, as long as we are getting our benefit. But that varies widely from employer to employer. So let me ask you this question. Because this is a perfect example of why are we talking about this in a business ethics course? Because there's two fundamental questions kind of lying at the base of this conversation. What would be the first one as a business ethics question?
Like, is it ethically acceptable for them to be seeing what you're doing
Is it
on
ethical
your?
behavior?
Well, is it ethical behavior for me as an employee to do things that are not necessarily business related during business hours? It gets at the question of what is ethical behavior for employees. The second question, and this gets exactly at your question, what is ethical behavior for employers? Okay, what right do I have to monitor the work that my folks are doing? What right do I have to look at the emails that they're sending or the websites that they're sending? Okay, when I first came here to work, about 3 months after I got here, I remember coming to work one morning and all of a sudden there were like 5 different police cars and all of this stuff parked out in front of the building. Turns out that one of the program directors in the culinary arts program was arrested for renting a child pornography ring out of his office on a state of Idaho computer.
Sorry.
Gotta love it. Okay? And it begs the question of, if my employees are doing illegal activities on my network or using my computers, am I held liable for that? Right? Was the university exposed to criminal problems because of the behavior of one of its representatives? And what right does the university then have to track what's being used? Okay? One of the classic examples is Bitcoin, okay, or cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is created by computers solving incredibly complex mathematical problems. And the degree of difficulty that it takes increases the value of the solutions. And those solutions are actually what we call cryptocurrency. Okay, so people attach financial value to these solutions because they're so hard to find. In order to find these things, you have to do what we call data mining. You have to have multiple computers connected together that are crunching through this data at a very, very high rate for a very long period of time. Okay, you normally have to use server farms, which are just massive rows of computers to get this stuff done. Okay? College students figured out, if I'm living at the dorm, guess who pays for the electricity? The dorm does. I'm on the university internet. Tends to be because of the nature of universities, they tend to be very high speed. which means I can crunch through massive amounts of data without having to pay for it myself because I'm living in a dorm room. So literally, there were college students who were buying or renting dorm rooms and never living in them. They literally just took racks of computers into this room with air conditioners because they looked at the cost versus how much Bitcoin can be worth. And they said, man, this is a no-brainer. And they would literally just put air conditioners in these rooms and have these rooms that were just literally floor to ceiling, nothing but computers. Because they knew that if they were at any other place, the cost of electricity, the cost of internet access, the overages that would exist if they tried to use commercial internet were so high, it was prohibitive, but they could get it for. Is that ethical?
Yeah, I mean, you pay for the room.
They're paying for the room, but
It's not being used for what it's intended for.
it wasn't being, they have a choice of deciding what that means, but I get that, again, gets at why we're talking about all of this in the first place. The question that again exists is, does the university have the right to track individuals who are using massive amounts of resources? For example, the electricity that's going through this one room, the amount of data that's being used on the internet. So that opens very nicely into what we're talking about today and why we're talking about all of this. Okay? Again, am I here to tell you what is right or wrong? No, that's a morality class, and this is not a morality class. This is an ethics class, which means what? What are we trying to figure out here?
What we ought to do.
Number one, what we ought to do and how to do that. How to decide what we ought to do. So that we can come up with a decision-making process that allows us to live with and sleep with the answer that we come up with. Okay? All right. So, let's see. Just slightly off. There we go. Okay. So we're going to be continuing today looking at questions related to employer relationships such as unions, and trying to think what else we looked at today.
Okay.
Equal and fair pay. Okay? All right, so Caden, you're up first.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to do number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah, it was an easy one.
Okay, go for it.
Figured I'd kick us off with a hard one. It says,
Okay.
which of the following laws ensures that employees provide a workplace environment free of risk to employees' safety and health? And I said C, OSHA.
It's OSHA. Okay, so why would this need to exist?
Well, if OSHA weren't to be put in place, it'd be up to the company to provide like training, updated equipment, and stuff like that without any oversight. So I don't know, companies could let some of the safety hazards slip without any consequences, really.
Okay. Sam, are you gonna say something?
Yeah, it's checks and balances, you know, for everything. You have to have something that enforces the balance.
Okay, and because history, oh, sorry, Kyle.
Well, and it just protects your employee from the company ordering you to do like unsafe or unethical acts.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're just, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Okay, so we know OSHA exists, I mean, just about any law exists because at some point in time, before it existed, the problem existed, right? So like we were saying, like any customer warning you see exists because somebody ended up hurting themselves in a way that required the company to have. So for example, the one that says, please do not stick your fingers up inside the lawnmower while the blade is turning, suggests that at some point, somebody said, hey, there's a clog in there, I know what to do.
Did you see the new one with the Gorilla Glue?
What?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the person used Gorilla Glue to,
And she said it was because they didn't say you could.
they didn't say explicitly that you could not do that, you should not do that. Okay, but the entire concept of OSHA comes from a long history from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s till today. As soon as we started to create larger organizations where work could be done, it increased the likelihood of risk. At first, we would expect companies to establish ethical minimums of safety, but we came to realize that if we simply relied on ethical expectations, that wasn't enough,
Well,
right?
there's still things that OSHA's adding to their recommendations.
Yes.
Just learning about combustible dust not very long ago.
Mhm.
And that's something you have to test the material, what kind of environment you're in. And that's something that they don't have 100% down yet in OSHA, but they're trying to. So it's an ongoing, I feel like, learn from lessons.
Yes, exactly. I mean, in the book, we saw, for example, the kid that was 16 and had lost an arm in a factory accident. If you really want to read some scary stuff, read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. It's about meat packing plants in the Chicago, in the, oh, dang. You will become a vegetarian if you read this thing. It is, oh, the stuff they would put in pressed ham. Yeah.
I want to do that.
What's that? Yeah, sorry. It's a better question to ask what wasn't put into pressed ham. Sawdust, nails, body parts. You lose a body part on the line, they aren't going to stop the line to go and try to find it. It's protein, man. That was the attitude.
Disgusting.
It was pretty gross. Okay?
Chicken nuggets are still being made the same way today.
That's why women love them.
Man, if nothing else is going to build up your immune system, man, we're just going to feed you chicken nuggets until, man, you are impervious to everything. There we go. All right. Let's see. Haley, you're up next.
I'll do number 11.
Number 11, not number 45. All right. Number 11. Go for it.
Which concept requires that all new hires for certain types of unionized jobs automatically be enrolled in a labor union appropriate to their job function, and that union dues automatically deducted from their pay? I chose B, closed shop.
Yes. So the idea of a closed shop is it is a completely unionized workplace. So therefore, anybody who wants to work there has to join a union, and it is mandatory before you can gain employment there. Now, I saw a lot of discussion back and forth about this. Okay, Haley, do you have something you wanted to ask first?
I just had a question because I know that it was mentioned with the right to work. So
Yes.
is that something that's included in a right to work state, or is that
No.
something separate from, like, you're either gonna have right to work or it's gonna be a closed shop?
Well, not exactly. In a right to work state, there is no closed shop. It is not possible to have closed shops in a right to work state.
Okay.
In a state that does not have right to work, in a state that does not have right to work laws, I am still not necessarily going into a closed shop.
They have the choice.
They have the choice. It's how the unions make agreements with the business to create a closed shop environment. So a lot of people said, well, how is that possibly fair? So let me ask you, let's talk about this. What would be the argument for a closed shop environment? Why should a union be able to require, or a group of unions, require that anybody that works there has to join the union and has a mandatory pay deduction to be able to start working there.
I read something about how it can kind of keep like conflicts between employees like down instead of like union employees and like those who aren't part of the union instead of
Yep.
like, kind of clash when like a strike happens.
Okay,
Everyone's kind of thinking the same thing.
okay. There's an even more fundamental reason, but you are correct.
I thought it was just representation.
Like protection,
They just
they
have-
know every, like the procedures and policies and rules and
Okay.
regulations.
Yep. So they can require everyone to have, if everybody's part of the union, then the union rules are consistently applied to everybody, which makes it much easier to keep track of things and manage things.
They're also with the contract for employees too. There's one aspect people don't think about is when you sign a contract, are you bound for X amount of time or what sort of rules and regulations between the company, what the company can do and what you do for, or against the company.
Okay. Anybody online have anything they want to add? What is the primary purpose or function of having a closed shop? Why does it exist?
I think it's the idea where everybody's going to be receiving basically the same benefits because you are negotiating pay for everyone. And if not everyone's paying into the union, it's unfair for union members.
Exactly. And that's the primary argument, is if everybody is receiving the benefits of union effort and union influence in the way that the business operates, if people don't have to pay into it yet receive the benefits that the union has created, it creates an unfair burden on those who stay part of the union. If I get the same pay as everybody else, but I don't have to pay union dues,
Then why would you?
why would I? Okay, yeah, so that's the primary argument for why closed shops exist. But like we said, those are limited to areas where unions can create those environments. The right to work law is a primary tool to fight against that. Okay? All right, let's keep going. Let's see. All right, Tanner, you're up.
Perfect.
I know you're here, I just saw you. There we go.
Yep, I am here. Oh, let's do number 10.
Number 10 has already been done.
Okay. Let's go down to, oh, I am in the wrong questions, I think, here. Here, let's see. Can you come back to me in just a couple more?
Yep,
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to find the question I want now. And
that's okay. Cattell, you're up.
Okay, I will do, number 20 been done?
Number 20 has not.
Which of the following commissions was created by the U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964? And I picked Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and it was titled.
Okay.
It was a religion, race, nationality, gender.
Okay, so it established that there are certain designations or identifiers that can pertain to somebody that we have agreed as a part of the Civil Rights Act cannot be a condition for or against employment. National origin, religion, gender. Okay? How does that, okay, so if we think about this, the U.S. Civil Rights Act, why does equal employment opportunity connect to the Civil Rights Act? We normally think of the Civil Rights Act as something having to do with voting and things like that. So where does employment come in?
Equality.
Okay? Well, okay. So our idea is in the U.S. Civil Rights Act, we're trying to establish balance in the society. This is a direct response to what?
This isn't necessarily to answer your question. This is about like the previous question.
Oh, no, you can't answer that then.
Well, okay. Well, anyway, so I think it's because like there might be two people who have like the same qualifications and everything, but like for an employer to like prioritize someone based off religion or race, it just isn't like ethical as far as like I don't know, productivity in the company would be. So
Okay.
it's just not. It's not fair to like the whole population if they like can prioritize based off these little things that have nothing to do with qualification.
Okay. One of the reasons why we're talking about this is because these specific protected state or protected status designators, okay, they are critical for the functioning of society. This is a direct response to what we call Jim Crow law. Jim Crow law was prevalent primarily in the southeastern United States. Okay, this would be, for example, separate but equal schools. The idea that I can segregate people based on race as long as
Or you have the same on both sides.
as long as I provide the same types of things for both sides. One of the things we quickly came to see was they're not going to be the same. Well, they have the same number of chairs, yeah, but this building has been condemned. That one was just built. Okay, so the entire idea of this was a fundamental part of civil rights is equal employment. Because, again, this gets back to economy, right? The degree to which we can work, the degree to which we can earn has a direct impact on how we can or cannot participate in a society. If, in order for me to provide for my family, I have to work 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job and sleep for 4 hours a day just to make ends meet, am I going to be able to be a highly functioning member of society?
No.
No, I am not going to be able to participate in civil discourse. I am not going to be able to participate or take advantage of many of the amenities that come with being in a society because I'm so busy trying to just simply make ends meet. Right? So what we're saying is this equal employment opportunity means everybody needs to be able to have this, based on these factors, should have equal consideration, or a more accurate way is, I cannot deny somebody. It's not that I'm going to give somebody a job because of this, as much as I cannot deny somebody a job because of these factors. Okay. James, are you ready to go? Or Tanner, I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, it's all good. Okay, let's try number 29.
Number 29. Okay.
So true or false, a woman with the same education, experience, and skills doing the same job as a man is still likely to earn less at all levels from bottom to top. I believe it's true. I can't say I've seen it be that way for reals, but I think it is true because I see a lot of heartache about it on social media.
There is quite a bit of truth to this, and the records show it. For example, just a few years ago, there was a pretty major lawsuit at Walmart. It was called the class action suit, where multiple people sued Walmart for the exact same thing, so they combined them together to represent a larger. They said, we have enough people that all experience the same thing. In this case, female managers, that we sued Walmart, not just for ourselves, but because we believe it represents a larger group of people, even if they haven't pursued legal recourse, they all experience the same thing. And they showed that female managers earned at least 30% less than their male counterparts with the same or less experience or time in position. And they proved it in court. Kyle, you were gonna say something.
This actually happened again to Target.
Yes.
And my wife used to work for Target in North Carolina, and they paid her, like, it was like, they showed up in the mail the other day, it was like $2.50. But they did the same thing, they made a collective entity and sued for, I think sexual harassment was going on, I guess. But, and then she got this
$2 check.
$2.50, and that's what
So it seems kind of strange that she would get $2.50 because a lot of times these class action suits will have a reward of like 100 or 200 million dollars. But what then happens is after you subtract attorney fees and things like that, then what they do is they go back and say, okay, how many people can prove that this specifically happened to them, and how much can they prove? How egregious was this? And then as that gets less and less and less, then they will start until they get to the point where, look, I never proved anything, but you could have possibly experienced it. So $2.50.
Buy yourself a soda.
Buy yourself.
Right.
Here's a check for $2.50. Go get yourself something nice. As my dad loves to
She
say.
walked in and she was like, I got paid, and I was like, oh, cool.
Hey,
She handed it to me, and I was like, this.
the dollar bills be raining, y'all. That's good money.
We don't want to go.
All right, Kason, you're up.
Is 24 available?
24 is available.
Okay, so which of the following is a legal philosophy that holds that either the employee or the employer may dissolve the employment arrangement at any time and without cause? I believe that is A, employment at will.
That is correct. Okay.
I like how the reading phrased it, that the employee has the right to quit or be terminated at any time.
Why?
Because it's kind of weird that it would say that the employee has the right to be terminated.
Because the employer holds that right, too, doesn't it?
Well, it seems strange to phrase it as they have the right to be terminated at any time. Why would they phrase, why would that be considered a right?
Get you out of the contract without punishment, that's pretty nice.
You get, what is it, unemployment?
There's some jobs where you just want out of there. And
Yeah.
it's better to be jobless than with that job.
Oh, yeah. All right, Jack, you're up.
Okay, I'll do number 44.
Number 44. Ooh.
Did I take somebody's?
No, but 45, I heard the number 45 a couple of times,
No,
so.
44.
All right, so 44 says distinguish unionization from co-determination. And
Okay,
so unions basically act as like a group. They're kind of like the lawyers and the negotiators for employees. They, negotiate higher pays and better benefits and things like that. And co-determination laws, they take it a little bit further on businesses that are at least like big enough for the laws to apply. And they make it so that the workers will work with the managers in the decision-making processes. And I think this can basically just kind of help lead to workers feeling like their voices are being heard more by management and by the business as a whole, and just kind of makes them generally happier with choices being made.
okay. So another term for co-determination is shared governance. Okay, that's a big deal. I mean, for example, Idaho State University uses a shared governance structure. We have a president. That president is the CEO of this institution. Okay, they make the final call on everything. But because this is an institution of higher learning, there is another group that has to have an equal voice. This cannot just be a business running on a business model. Why not? What is happening right now in this room? We're having a class, right? We're having an interaction between a teacher and students, okay? This is the primary function of this institution. Therefore, in a shared governance model, who else has to have a say in how the institution is run?
People.
Which people specifically?
Employees,
Not just the employees in general.
anyone
Not students.
involved.
Nope. Okay, sorry. If we think about this, the purpose of this entire institution is to provide an environment where teaching can take place. Right? Therefore, it is reasonable to assume that faculty, teachers, need to have a very vital role in how decisions are made. Decisions cannot just be made by somebody who's looking at the bank account. We have to have teachers being able to say what should or shouldn't be done and having a voice in the policies and the budgets and things like that at this institution. So the faculty have something called the Faculty Senate, where they elect representatives to represent them in providing feedback, providing direction to the president on how the university should be run. Now, getting to what Haley said, there is another staff council. What do you think that group is made up of? Not students. Staff council. It's not the teachers, that's Faculty Senate.
Staff.
It is made up of the staff. So this is all the non-instructional personnel at the university, people who are not directly tied to teaching, but who work here. Custodians, secretaries, administrators, okay, belong to the staff council, and they hold a third role. There's one final group that also is involved in the governance of this institution. Students. We have the ASISU, the Associated Student Body. And so because students are directly affected by the way things work, they also have a seat at the table when decisions are being made. This is that co-determination model. When all the different parties within an organization have a representation and an opportunity to provide a feedback and a vote on how things are done.
Well, this is super helpful, because I had no idea who the ASISU was, so I was getting emails.
It's called the student, okay, so it's the Associated Students of ISU, or this, okay, and so it's essentially the student body, the student government.
Did they just change their name recently?
ASISU? No, that's been around for a long time.
I still get emails on
Yep.
I do too. I think it's-
That's what it's, now here's the thing. What typically happens is students at the College of Technology tend to have less engagement in things like ASISU because, number one, we tend to not be here as long, right? You're only here for 2 years, mostly. That's what we've done for, right? So we normally don't take as much advantage of student life and student opportunities as students on lower campus who are going to be here for a much longer period of time. Second, a large number of the students that come to the College of Technology are what we call non-traditional students, right? These are not full-time, single young students who live on campus and really depend on the university to provide them with a wide variety of services. The majority of College of Tech students, you show up, you take your classes, and then you get out of here as quickly as you can, right? You're not hanging out in the library. You're not going down to listen to concerts and things like that because you have full-time employment, you have families, you have other things that are pulling you away from campus. So we tend to not have as much engagement in student body activities as students on lower campus. Okay.
Inherently less issues to deal with too, right? Like,
Yeah. Which is both good and bad. because you're paying the same amount as students on lower campus, so you are essentially subsidizing student life for students on lower campus, because you're paying the same amount for those activities to exist, you just don't use them. So congratulations, you've all paid for masseuses, but you've never gone to get the massage, essentially. But folks on lower campus do. So they thank you. All right, let's see, Logan, are you with us today?
I'm trying, nobody's here.
Logan going once, Logan going twice. All right, Anthony. Anthony going once. Anthony going twice. Billy.
I'm here.
Okay, hey, we have a winner. What do you got? Which question would you like to answer?
Is question 22 still available?
22. It looks like it is, yes.
Okay, so wage growth for all workers must be fair, which in most cases means higher wages for which of the following groups? I'm pretty sure it's both low and middle income workers.
Okay, why?
Because usually they're more in poverty or like they just make less in general. So if the growth for all of them would be fair, it means like their wages would be raised more.
Okay, so for example, we've been reading in the textbook about the fact that CEO compensation tends to be 300 times higher than entry-level employees. We're not going to be quite as concerned about management wages compared to low and middle income wages. Okay? Because most of the people that tend to decide who makes what belong to which group? The management, who's making it 300 times higher than everybody else. Okay? So, but yeah, this is one of the challenges. Wage growth tends to be, and can't just be for low end, because then you're going to run into something called salary compression. Anybody want to guess what salary compression is?
Is it when like the lowest income is like too close to like the middle ranges?
Mm-hmm.
And like it's all.
So then everybody's kind of getting paid the same, but there's no growth. People aren't all moving up. It's just everyone's kind of moving into the same range. Classic example of this is people who were hired at lower wages then start seeing people that come in after them making more to start. So then everybody's kind of making the same. And the folks that were hired first, if their wages aren't growing at the same rate as the new people getting hired, that creates compression. For example, that happens here at ISU. The wage at which I was hired when I first started has increased by at least $10,000 with the last person that got, or with the person that I just hired, made $10,000 more than I did when I got hired for the same degree, same level of background. Okay? Now, admittedly, there was a 20-year difference there. But I sit there and think, where would I be if I had started $10,000 more than where I was? Oh, man. My life would be.
I don't want to think about it.
Well, it's one of those reasons why I keep on making the jokes about if you guys want to get back at me for having to sit through this class, just bring in your first paychecks. It'll make me weep. Okay, thank you, Billy. All right, let's see. I think we're at Scott.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Is 21 still available?
21 is still available.
What is the federal minimum wage? And that is $725, and it was last raised July 24th, 2009.
Okay. And I remember when it was $5.15. $5.15, man. That was me. That was me in high school.
That was back in 2007.
That's a long time now. There's been no increase, but cost of living and everything else
Has dramatically increased, which is whether you agree with it or not, one of the arguments being made as a part of the COVID stimulus package is to change the minimum wage
To $15.
to $15. With debate about what impact that's going to have on the economy.
That's the state.
Yeah, each state kind of determines their own minimum wage based on that state. If we federally change all of it to be this one flat number, the issue we come into is it destroys economies for smaller states versus bigger states. Like I said.
Well, but here's the thing. The federal minimum wage is for federal jobs. If I understand correctly, because you're right, states make their own individual, but for the federal government and for federal employees, I might be completely off on that. I'm not an
I
economist.
was
So
under the
legal minimum.
interpretation, yeah, it was like the legal minimum that you could pay an employee.
That's what I thought it was. Too.
For each state, it's also the legal limit, isn't it?
I don't know. Let's look this up and we'll talk about this in class next week. Way to go, Ms. Weimer. Right answer. But Scott, you are correct. The current minimum wage is $7.25. Okay, Kyle.
Jackson.
Came fast.
What?
Did Jackson go?
Jackson didn't, is Jackson on?
Oh, I don't know. He was before me. I thought Scott was last one.
Yeah, so I just went.
Oh, sorry, Jackson. I apologize.
Trying to do the right and ethical thing here.
Jackson going once.
Oh, man.
Unless he's not here.
Jackson going twice.
All right.
Kyle, mess not with the instructor. He knoweth what he's saying. What do you got?
Can I do 45?
Yes, you can. Yes.
I put a lot of effort in.
Okay.
Like for me, probably not for you.
Okay.
So it says discuss the pros and cons of the right to work laws. The pros of the right to work are honestly probably the cons of the union.
Okay.
Generally, the pros would be like it's easier to get promoted.
Okay.
Rather than the union. There's no union dues, and you don't go into a job paying a union due.
Okay.
In that closed shop. It's easier to diversify the workforce.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the approach is they don't have to join the union when they get in to the closed, like a closed shop. They just don't have to do that. But there's no like union protection or representation during collective bargaining process.
That's not necessarily true.
So you can still get a lawyer.
Well, you can still have a union in a right to work state. There are unions in Idaho, even though Idaho is a right to work state.
You just have the choice of whether you want to be in it or not.
Exactly. Okay.
Right, so if you're not in it, you can't use the representation, can you?
Well, you can't, but most of the time, unless the union is bargaining only for union members, then it tends to be that a rising tide lifts all boats. So most of the time, the work conditions and things like that a union is going to require are going to benefit non-union workers as much. They might not get the same kind of compensation and pay. They might not have the same number of hours or the same access to job types and things like that. But it doesn't mean that unions don't exist in right to work states.
Okay, well.
Yeah. It's a minor clarification.
I guess, yeah, I didn't. Well, and then, the other cons to the right to work is like, where they don't have the union to create that formal dispute. So, well, and then the rest of what I have is like the same thing we just talked about. The union doesn't negotiate for your benefits, but they kind of do. They don't lobby for the rights of the worker that they do as a whole when they're doing
Right.
it. Right. So I miswrote that part.
Okay.
I understand where you're going with that.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? Not just,
Yeah, I don't know.
okay. Wages tend to be lower in right-to-work states. Why?
You don't have someone negotiating. When I talked about this topic a little bit, I talked about like buying a used car.
Okay.
You bring a mechanic with you, they understand how cars work a lot better. So you might get into the car and be like, oh, this is comfy, this looks good. But when you bring a mechanic, they're looking at the engine, they're looking at underneath it. There's a lot of aspects that an average person doesn't know or wouldn't know what to look for that someone that has experience in this type of work would. And so the union kind of represents that mechanic in that sense, where they're going to be able to tell you, you know, avoid this, look for that.
Okay. Favorite example of this specific thing that you're talking about. Bought a car in northern Utah, and my father-in-law just happened to live fairly close to where this car was. And so I asked him if he would go down and test drive it for me just to get a sense of what was going on. And then I was going to send him the money for the car, and we were going to be off. And he drove it, and he was driving with the dealer, and he said, you know, the car's great. It's a beautiful car, but it makes this really weird sound whenever I make a right-hand turn. Can we put it up on the lift and take a look and see if there's anything going on with the car? And they pull it up, they pull it into the garage, lift it up on the lift, and the shop manager's looking under there, and then all of a sudden my father-in-law just hears him start laughing his head off. And what had happened was, and I didn't get the exact details, all I know is he sent me a picture of this. Some line had snapped on the inside of the wheel well. Somebody went and took a pair of vice clamps, clamped the line together, and then had just jammed the clamp up inside the wheel well.
Yeah, something car guys do.
And so, but they said, yeah, the car is totally fine, we're ready to sell it to you. And my father-in-law goes, yeah, no. But it's that exact, I would not have known what was going on until the wheel fell off about 5 miles outside of Tremont, you know, right between Malad and Tremont, and I would have been totally hooked.
Yeah, just paying a mechanic to take that hour or two to get on a test drive, it's the best investment.
Yeah.
You might spend $100 on mechanic, but it saves you from spending $8,000 on a back part.
And that's what and so I see the analogy to the argument of the union. Okay, all right, so let's see, we are on, Megan, are you with us today?
Yes.
Megan?
Can I do number 38?
Number 38, go for it.
It says, why should a manager be concerned with employees' morale and happiness? And I think it's because when employees are happy, they're willing to do more for the company, and they're willing to be more productive with their time and just the company overall.
Excellent. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
That was perfect.
Yeah.
I would actually say that there's one other reason. Okay.
It also adds to like the relationship in the work environment with everybody.
Okay.
So if you're like more productive, and like the manager's actually like paying attention to kind of like your morale and stuff, then there's a better relationship between the employees and the managers.
Excellent. Okay. The only thing I would add is that most of the time, managers are not actually producing anything in the workplace. Their entire function is simply to oversee and improve the experience of employees. So if you're not concerned with morale and happiness, then what are you concerned with? Okay, I've had bosses that were very clearly concerned with this, and I've had bosses that these two words never crossed their minds.
Production efficiency.
Yeah. And those were not good places to work. And productivity tended to suffer because of it. The other thing that I've experienced and realized is if you look at it Most of us, if you work a full-time job, that tends to be, on average, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, different industries will use different models and things like that, but that's a common thing, right? If you think about it, what that means is the time you spend at work is equivalent to the time you spend at home. You spend as much time with your coworkers as you do with your own family. In a lot of situations, sometimes more. Okay? If we know the things that tend to contribute to a happy home life, and in a lot of situations, those same skills that we acquire at home, or hopefully acquire at home, translate to the workplace, and vice versa. Okay? So if managers understand their role, happiness and morale are critical. Okay, so, and I remember somebody saying something about, should managers make work fun? And there was this debate. Work is supposed to be serious. We're supposed to produce important things. That is true. But fun can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Okay? If you are watching a sports game that you have a lot of investment in, either financially or emotionally, okay? And the outcome of that game is close or is in doubt. I have felt a lot of emotions that I normally would not construe as fun. Fear, anxiety, frustration, anger. Yet I still watch these games for fun. Right? Okay, I remember playing video games with my kid where there was that part where I struggled with it and I finally get through and I'm like drenched in sweat. And that's supposed to be fun. So the idea of fun as just being giggles and lighthearted laughter isn't necessarily the most accurate construct of what it means to make work fun. I would argue that when we say that we want to make work fun, we want work that emphasizes morale and happiness. That doesn't mean that we're playing, I mean, for example, Cattell, Sam, you guys are going to be working on nuclear generators. This is not a place where I want people having lighthearted laughter and fun, right? Because there are serious consequences if you don't do your job right. But that does not mean that it has to be an oppressive or, what's the word I'm thinking? Authoritarian workplace. It can be a place full of respect and admiration and appreciation of people. And people would say that that's fun. Okay? All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Sam, you're up.
That'd be 46.
Number 46. Okay, go for it.
How does executive pay in the United States compare with the executives around the world? Is it fair pay? So in the chapter, we read that executives get paid far more in the United States than on average anywhere else in the country. I say this is fair. Why I say it's fair is because we have a free market economy that allows anyone to achieve the quote unquote American dream. If you think a CEO is being paid too much, will become a competitor. You have an opportunity to make your own business, run your own business, and become that CEO that you think is up there and paid, and you can pay your employees what you would. But a lot of CEOs in the United States, they make that revenue. They have a big salary for a reason. They're making that money back. It's an investment. Look at Tesla, Elon Musk.
Yep.
I brought him up earlier this week, but he has a huge amount of wealth, and it's not random he has that wealth. He brought that company up, invested in it, made that confidence, and its stock, it split earlier this year. Now it's already back up at 800 this year. And you know, when it split, it was $150, $200. That just shows how much confidence people have.
Isn't he the only one in the government can buy stuff for aerospace too?
Jeff Bezos, right?
Oh.
No,
it's
Bezos is Amazon.
Tesla.
There's another company.
There's quite a few companies that do, I mean, for example, Orbital ATK, which is rocket boosters, just over here at Promontory Point in Utah, build boosters for the space shuttle, at least they did. But
Maybe I'm just thinking that he does have.
he does have a very strong, he's created one of the first commercial space service industries. So he has private rockets that are able to travel. For example, the first manned mission to the space station by a private company rather than by a government.
Are they doing that too?
He did, yeah, he did that last summer.
Aren't they doing it again?
They're- yeah.
taking citizens, they're taking non.
They're taking non-governmental individuals to do this. Yeah, so it's the beginning of the commercial space industry. It used to be the governmental. NASA and their competitors in like Russia and China. It used to be only governments had the money and the resources to be able to put stuff into space. SpaceX, which is one of Elon Musk's companies, is one of the first ones to be able to do it from a private company. What made his different was that he has created rockets that can be reusable. Okay, and because it's been that the space shuttle was reusable, but all of the components that it used, you use them once and that's it. SpaceX has made it affordable because they created it so that they can recover. And if you've ever watched it, it is freaking crazy awesome that these rockets are able to land on these floating barges in the middle of the ocean so that they can be reused. Kind of cool.
So
Shows how far we've come.
Yeah.
Bezos just had rockets blow up, didn't he?
Not Bezos. Musk. Bezos is the CEO of Amazon.
What about Blue Origin?
He has airplanes.
I thought he was in aerospace too.
Was he? I don't know.
Like,
I-
I
I-
thought there was a recent explosion with nobody in it, with his rockets he was testing.
Oh, Musk has them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, is that everybody? No, Porter.
This is what recently Bezos was trying to get it.
Yeah.
But he stepped down from.
Can I do 31?
Number 31. Go for it.
Okay, in a company, if the majority is voted to be represented by a union, the workers must join and do not have the choice to opt out. That is, that's false.
That's false. Okay, why is that a big deal?
Would it just depend on whether it's a right to work or if it's a.
To a degree. But just because a majority of people want to join a union, they do not therefore have the right to be able to force people who are non-union to have to join the union as well. They just acknowledge that if they don't join the union, they lose the benefits that come with that. Okay? All right. So we've got our video for today and the lottery. Before we move into that, I want to spend some time because I want to spend a couple of things. We might not get to the video today. I apologize. I know Sam is going to be just depressed if he doesn't get to answer these questions, if he doesn't get to debate. Next week, has anybody looked at next week?
Yes.
We have a midterm exam. We will have no readings. In fact, we will not have class. Because I want to give you guys enough time to be able to do your other class, to take care of your other classes. Okay? Catel's freaking out. Breathe. Okay?
What kind of test are we getting?
That's what I'm about to talk to you about. So, you are going to be asked to write 2 450 to 550 word responses. I'm going to have you open this in you're going to open a Microsoft Word document and type in your answers and then submit it in to turn it in, just like we've done for all of our other assignments. Okay? For this, they have to be written in paragraphs Do not use bullet points or anything like that. Okay, you should use APA style. I do not expect for you to use outside sources. They're not required. If you want to, you are allowed to. Okay, if you do, then they should be cited using APA citation. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, you're going to be graded on 5 elements. The clarity and development of your thesis, the main argument of your paper, an accurate description of an ethical strategy's goals and methods. Okay, so just like we've been doing with those ethical decision framework things that we've been doing, right? Clarity of thought, quality of thought, and technical adherence, formatting, structure, spelling.
Oof, that'll get me.
Yes.
You have Microsoft Word and spell check, okay? You have Google. This is open book, open notes. The exam will begin on Sunday at midnight. It will be open until Sunday at 11:59 a week from then. So you have a week to work on this assignment. Okay, I do not believe in timed exams. That just causes stress, but it does not improve the quality of response. Also, I also recognize that many of you have other midterm exams, and I do not want this to complicate the other midterm exams you have to take.
So you want us to do 2?
There are 2 questions. You're going to respond to both of them. Okay? Because I'm the cool guy that I am, I'm going to show you the questions.
Nice.
Because that's how I roll. Because the truth is, letting you know ahead of time is not going to make these questions any easier or harder to answer. Right? My goal, it's just like the reason why I give you guys the questions ahead of time. If you guys spend time figuring out the answer, that's a win for me. Okay? The only request that I have, the only limitation, is this should be your work. I do not want you to work in groups. I do not want you to share answers or work out answers together. I do not want you to take this to a tutor. You can take it to somebody to help you check the writing, not the content. I think those are all reasonable expectations. I'm going to put you on your honor. This should be something I can do in an ethics class more than any other class I teach. Okay? Before I show the questions, Winter, I think you had a question.
So if we're like using our notes to kind of help us with the arguments, do we need to like, so if I took notes on like one of the chapters,
You can use whatever you want. The only time is where you're using ideas that you did not come up with. So if you took notes out of the textbook, or if you want to reference the textbook, cite it. If you go and read something else, if you want to look up a journal article or something about the topic, cite that. If it's something that you've come up with, either with engaging with the text and stuff like that, but it's your own thoughts, you don't have to cite that. Okay? Question number 1 has to do with John Rawls. This was a long time ago, so you're going to want to go back and review that section. John Rawls' original position, right? John Rawls is the one that talked about fairness. And one of the things he said was, one of his concepts is that we have to come from an original position when it comes to ethics. His original position represents a community in which you have no idea what kind of person you will end up being. In this sense, it's like life itself. After all, you have no idea what your future will be like. You could end up rich, poor, married, single, living in Manhattan or Peru. You might be a surgeon or fishing for sturgeon. I copied this from someplace else. I just want you to know that I did not come up with this language. I cannot take credit or blame. Yet there is one community you will most likely be a part of at some point, the age. Given that you know this but are not sure of the details, what conditions would you agree to now so that senior citizens are provided for? If you don't know what outcome you're going to have, what rules should apply to everybody if they apply to you, but you don't know ahead of time how you're going to come into it. Original position, I don't know anything, so what is fair for that it would apply to everyone? That's the concept here. Does this make sense? Okay? Remember, you're most likely to join them and experience the effects of whatever you decide. You are living behind not a spatial veil of ignorance, but a temporal one, meaning you know where you will live, but not how long or when. Does that make sense? So your job, identify 3 conditions that you would want to apply to anybody who gets old. And explain the ethical implication or connection. Here's the rule, here's why I believe it is ethical, from Rawls' perspective. Does that make sense? So 450 words, you're probably going to want to do what with them? Divide it into 3. Okay? So 450 divided by 3 is?
Like 112, 10, 20.
150.
50.
Okay? So you're going to want to have 3 answers of about 150 words. Here's condition 1 and why, 150 words. Here's condition 2, 150 words. Here's condition 3, 150 words.
So you don't have like intro, conclusion, and just.
Don't need that. I want paragraph format, but I'm not expecting essays. Okay? Now remember, I said you're going to be graded on your thesis, correct? How many thesis statements am I going to have in this answer? 3. How clear is your 3 rules for how to treat the old folks? How clear are those 3 statements? That's going to be what you're going to be graded on. Okay? All right. Question number 2. This policy or statement comes from the Columbia University website. As an equal opportunity and affirmative action employer, the university does not discriminate against or permit harassment of employees or applicants for employment based on the basis of race, color, sex, gender, including gender identity and expression, pregnancy, religion, creed, national origin, age, alienage and citizenship, status as a perceived or actual victim of domestic violence, disability, marital status, sexual orientation, military status, partnership status, genetic predisposition or carrier status, arrest record, or any other legally protected status. And this is from their office. I'm going to ask you to answer one of the following 2 bullet points. There is what we call intentional discrimination and unintentional discrimination. You are either going to pick intentional or unintentional and identify which items in this list of protected statuses, which of these are most likely to be unintentional discrimination, which ones are most prone or vulnerable to unintentional discrimination. Which of these are most vulnerable to intentional discrimination? And I'm going to ask you to identify which ones are and explain why.
So with this, is there a time period that we're looking at, or is it like just right now, what is more likely to be intentional or unintentional?
I'm going to take it from, you just read this statement, which ones, if you were to apply this right now, which ones of these are most likely to be intentional or unintentional? You don't have to answer which ones are this or which ones are that. You're going, which ones are most vulnerable to unintentional discrimination and why?
3 paragraphs.
It's about 3, well, it might be 1 or 2 sentences for each one of the conditions. It'll be a little bit, it won't be a big long thing, but for each one, you're going to identify what it is and why is it vulnerable to intentional or unintentional discrimination. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you have to memorize this list right now? No. Okay? The purpose of letting you know this is, I have one reason for this. I want Cattell to actually have a weekend. I do not want Cattell spending all weekend freaking out about what is Dr. Lambert's midterm going to be like. This isn't, you have seen the midterm. Essentially, the midterm starts right now.
I'm like, can I like take a picture?
It's not available yet. But even though you can't see the specifics, I've already planted the seeds in your head, right? You already know what I'm asking. What are you probably going to spend this weekend looking at? John Rawls. Right?
Maybe.
No, maybe not. Maybe you have other exams. But the thing is, I let you guys know this because my goal is to get the best possible answer. I want to see what you understand. I want to see how well you can explain this to me. This is not a, can I trip you up? Can I screw you up? Can I put a trap to hurt you? It's, can you show me you understand this stuff? My purpose in showing you this is so you don't freak out and wonder, holy crap, this is a 20-page exam. I had an instructor when I was going to school, this was before the internet, don't take pictures.
Yeah. Is it on Zoom? I only got one of them.
Yes. I just put it as part of the required, I've already recorded it.
Oh, yeah.
It's already recorded, guys. Yeah, again, my point here is not to screw you guys up. But back in the day, we didn't have computers widely spread. We had things called blue books. They were these little tiny notebooks. And all it was sheets of lined paper that they stapled a blue cover on the outside, and you write down what the name of your class was. You'd sit down in a room like Holt Arena that was literally one side to the other was just desks. It was the most miserable place on campus. It smelled like stale sweat and tears. And literally, this was in the old days where you'd have the desk where the desk and the chair were all together, and they would literally, the back of the seat was touching the front of the next desk, and it was just like this and that. And you'd sit there, and he would expect you to fill in 2 blue books in order to complete the exam.
Of just whatever you know from the class?
Well, he would give you this list of like 20 essay questions, and you just be going, I'm going, I swore to myself I would never do that again. So my goal is to let you guys know ahead of time. So number 1, is this manageable?
Yeah, for sure.
There's no,
On our grade.
what's that? Maybe, I think your final exam and your midterm together are worth about 5% of your grade. So I think it's like 2% maybe.
Wow, that's not bad at all.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, I don't want one assignment to make or break your grade. The make or break of your grade is, are you guys commenting on a regular basis on perusal? Are you doing your ethical decision-making assignment? Those are the fundamentals of this course, not an exam. Right? I'm learning more from what you guys do and don't know from perusal and from those than from this exam.
If I can get it, we curve that percentage up.
Can I get extra credit if I go and do a little more research on that federal?
Oh my
minimum
goodness.
No. But like I said, this is why I'm giving you, for example, 8 out of 12. You're only getting graded on 8 of the 12 decision-making assignments, right? So if you got a low grade on one, if you do 9 of them, it will drop the lowest grade. That's extra credit. I'm already taking extra credit from our classroom participation.
Are we gonna do that today?
We are doing that today, yes.
He's like, this is what I'm gonna do.
That we're doing a water right now.
When will that be open?
What, the midterm exam? Midterm exam will officially post Sunday at midnight. Yep. And then it's open until 11:59 on March 8th.
Yeah, if you think about it, anyone that was against the lottery should not be able to finish.
I agree.
What's that?
Said anyone that was against the lottery, this dilemma, should not be able to finish out.
And it was by their choice.
Oh, man. All right, so drum roll, please. Number 3, number 15, and number 10.
Oh my gosh, who
15
was
was
10?
already doing.
I never get picked.
Okay, so let's see. Number 3, Tanner, Billy,
Right. Woohoo!
Andrew,
You already got it.
who already got it.
Let's give it to one last.
Oh my
The easy way
goodness.
to go.
You get it every time.
You get it every time. I'm giving it to Megan.
I wasn't
Nice
here.
try. Megan's always here
I
in
was
class.
sick
Totally threw
yesterday.
me off when Haley was here. And
Oh, I was
I
like, that's Haley.
know that's Haley. It's normally Megan. It totally threw me off when you were. By the way, congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
So, all right, and that's everything I've got for today, folks. We'll see you next week.
Working with Katie as her facilitator. Awesome.
So do you get to see that when everybody gets a job here?
Kind of.
Oh.
I saw it online, but
Could you share your screen?
hopefully that wasn't.
Oh,
That was at the very beginning of class. Did I not share the screen the entire time?
oh, no, you did. Oh, wait,
Nice.
I don't.
Oh,
Oh,
I
maybe
wanted
you
to
did.
take a picture of those questions.
Oh, sorry.
I tried.
Okay, so here's the thing. I did record it. So I will make sure I will go down to my office right now and share it so that you guys have access.
Okay.
right.
If,
Thank you.
Mr. Lambert, I also have a quick question for you.
Okay, hold on just a second.
in the recording, will it still show up if you do screen share?
Well, because it was up on the screen.
Okay.
Even though I didn't share it in Zoom, it was up on this screen, so it was.
Oh,
I'm hoping. If not, I apologize.
oh, man.
Okay, who was asking for, was Kaden, were you the one that was asking, or was it Andrew?
Thank
This is
you.
Andrew.
I
What's
also
up?
have a question, but
Okay,
So I
Who
was
wants
just
to go
wondering. So I was just wondering to make sure. So you said we have no class next week, both Tuesday and Thursday.
that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, Kaden, did you have a question?
yeah. So do you have? I'm sorry. I have. What are your office hours to visit?
Office hours, it's in the syllabus.
Okay. And that's through Zoom or in class? Or in
I can do it in person if you want. I said that it was going to be on Zoom, but if you want to stop by, you're more than welcome. My office has changed, I think. It's in room 284 on the second floor.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, just stop by.
Alrighty.